Driving in America often feels like a competitive sport, where everyone else on the asphalt is actively out to get you. When I moved to the United Kingdom a year and a half ago, the idea of driving on the left side of the road literally terrified me. I pictured myself constantly turning into oncoming traffic or sideswiping parked cars on narrow cobblestone streets. But what actually shocked me was not the steering wheel being on the wrong side of the rental car. It was the realization that British road rules and driving culture are light years ahead of ours in the United States. I am Olivia, and after surviving my first year of navigating British motorways, winding country lanes, and chaotic London streets, I have come to a massive realization. The British have quietly perfected the art of driving. They have implemented rules, systems, and social etiquettes that make getting behind the wheel safer, less stressful, and honestly much more logical. Every time I go back to the States now, I find myself deeply frustrated by our chaotic four-way stops and completely unregulated vehicle safety standards. So today, we need to talk about the 9 British road rules that Americans desperately wish they had. Number 1 is the absolute mastery of the roundabout. If you have driven in the US, you know the psychological standoff of the four-way stop. 4 cars pull up to an intersection at roughly the same time. Everyone stops. Then the awkward guessing game begins. Who got here first? Who is supposed to yield? Someone edges forward, then slams on their brakes. It is inefficient and causes unnecessary traffic backups. The British solved this decades ago with the roundabout. When you approach a British traffic circle, the rule is brilliantly simple. You give way to traffic coming from your right. That is it. If the roundabout is clear, you do not even have to come to a complete stop. You just slip into the flow of traffic and keep moving. This completely eliminates the stop-and-go accordion effect that plagues American suburban intersections. The geometric design of a roundabout naturally forces drivers to slow down to a safe speed, whereas American traffic lights actually encourage drivers to speed up to try and beat the yellow light. And the British take roundabouts to a level of complexity that is genuinely awe-inspiring. They have massive multi-lane spiral roundabouts where the lane you choose on the approach naturally spirals you out to your exact exit. They even have the famous magic roundabout in Swindon, which is essentially 5 mini roundabouts arranged in a circle around one central counter-directional roundabout. It looks like pure chaos from a helicopter, but on the ground it flows like water. It requires drivers to actually pay attention and cooperate, rather than just blindly staring at a red, yellow, or green bulb. Number 2 is the MOT test, and this one blew my mind. In many US states, you can legally drive a vehicle that is quite literally crumbling apart. I grew up seeing cars on the highway with entirely rusted out frames, bumpers held on by duct tape, and exhaust pipes dragging on the pavement throwing sparks. As long as you paid your registration fee, nobody cared. The UK does not play that game. Every single car over 3 years old must pass an annual Ministry of Transport test, universally known as the MOT. This is not a simple emissions check. This is a rigorous mandatory safety inspection conducted by certified mechanics. They put the car on a lift, they check the structural integrity for rust. They test the suspension, the brakes, the tire tread depth, the headlights, the seat belts, and the exhaust system. If your car fails the MOT, it is legally barred from being driven on public roads until the dangerous defects are repaired. This creates a baseline of safety for everyone on the road. When I am driving down the M1 motorway at 70 miles per hour in the pouring rain, I have peace of mind knowing that the car next to me actually has working brakes and tires with proper grip. The cultural impact of this is huge. Every British car owner feels a distinct sense of financial dread during their MOT month, praying their car passes without needing expensive repairs. But the trade-off is a significantly lower rate of accidents caused by mechanical failure. We desperately need this level of strict safety regulation back home. Number 3 brings us to how they handle speeding, specifically with average speed checks. In the US, speed enforcement is basically a game of hide and seek. Highway patrol officers hide their cruisers behind billboards, in the median bushes, or at the bottom of steep hills, waiting to catch you going over the limit. It feels entirely focused on generating revenue through surprise tickets, rather than actually keeping the roads safe. Drivers just slam on their brakes when they spot a cop, and then speed right back up once they pass them. The British approach is entirely different. They use bright yellow speed cameras that are clearly signposted miles in advance. They want you to see them, but the true genius is the average speed check zone. Instead of measuring your speed at one isolated spot, A camera reads your license plate when you enter a zone, which could be 10 or 20 miles long. Another camera reads your plate when you exit the zone. The system then calculates exactly how long it took you to travel that distance and determines your average speed. You cannot trick this system. You cannot speed for 9 miles, slam on your brakes for the camera, and speed up again. If your average speed over the entire distance exceeds the limit, an automatic fine drops through your letterbox a few days later. The result is that traffic flows at a remarkably smooth, consistent pace through these zones. Nobody is aggressively tailgating. Nobody is weaving between lanes. Everyone just sets their cruise control to the speed limit and relaxes. It is enforcement designed to prevent accidents, not just punish them after the fact. Quick thing before we get to the worst two on this list, the data on this channel shows that over 80% of you watching right now are not subscribed. That means you are showing up for the content, but the algorithm has no reason to show you the next video. Hit subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Number 4 is my absolute favorite, and it is entirely unwritten. It is the hazard light thank you flash. Driving in the UK, especially out in the countryside, involves navigating incredibly narrow roads bordered by ancient stone walls or thick green hedges. Often, two cars cannot fit past each other. This requires one driver to pull over into a tiny passing place or physically reverse their car to let the other person through. When someone does this for you, it is mandatory British etiquette to acknowledge their politeness. As you pass them, you raise a hand in thanks. But the real magic happens on faster roads or in the dark. If a truck driver flashes their headlights to let you merge in front of them, you pull into the lane and immediately flash your hazard lights exactly twice. Blink, blink. That is the universal British signal for thank you. The truck driver will then often flash their high beams once to say, "You are welcome." It is this tiny, silent conversation happening between strangers at high speeds. In America, driving is inherently adversarial. We view other cars as obstacles in our way. If someone cuts you off, the immediate response is road rage and laying on the horn. In Britain, driving feels much more cooperative. The thank you flash acknowledges the shared humanity of the people trapped in these metal boxes. If you let a British driver into a queue of traffic and they do not give you the hazard flash, you genuinely feel betrayed. It is a beautiful little cultural quirk that makes the daily commute infinitely more pleasant. Also, this is exactly the kind of thing I go much deeper on with the people who support this channel directly. So if you are sitting there thinking, okay, I need the fuller version of this story, join the membership below. That is where I share the deeper thoughts, the more personal side of all this, and the extra bits I cannot always fit into the main videos. Number 5 is the brilliant L&P plate system for new drivers. In the United States, we hand a 16-year-old a piece of plastic and throw them directly onto a 6-lane interstate highway. The cars they drive might have a tiny, unreadable student driver bumper sticker, but for the most part, you have no idea that the person merging next to you has only been driving for 3 weeks. The UK requires all learner drivers to display large, highly visible white squares with a bold red letter L on the front and back of their vehicle. You can spot an L plate from a mile away. When British drivers see an L plate, their entire demeanour changes. They give the learner extra space. They do not honk aggressively if the learner stalls the car at a green light. They remember how stressful it was to learn how to drive a manual transmission car, which is what the vast majority of British people learn on. But it gets even better. Once a learner passes their grueling driving test, they can choose to display a green P plate. This stands for newly passed or probationary. It signals to the world that yes, they are legally allowed to drive alone now, but they are still building their confidence. It provides a psychological grace period for new drivers. It tells the veteran drivers on the road to just have a little bit of patience. We desperately need this visual warning system on American roads to protect our newly licensed teenagers and everyone driving around them. Number 6 tackles the nightmare of urban gridlock with the yellow box junction. If you have ever driven in Manhattan or downtown Chicago during rush hour, you know the pain of the blocked intersection. The traffic light turns green, but you cannot move forward because the cars coming from the cross street decided to push into the intersection on a yellow light, and now they are stuck blocking your path. It causes endless honking, frustration, and complete traffic paralysis. In London and across the UK, they paint massive yellow crisscross grids on the pavement inside busy intersections. The law regarding these yellow box junctions is incredibly strict. You are legally forbidden from entering the yellow box unless your exit road is completely clear. You must wait behind the line, even if your traffic light is green, until there is enough physical space on the other side of the intersection for your car to fit into. If you get impatient, pull into the box and the light changes while you are stuck inside it. A camera mounted on the traffic light pole will automatically snap a photo of your license plate. A few days later, you will receive a massive fine, often over £100. Because the financial penalty is so heavily enforced, British drivers actually obey the rule. They wait patiently behind the line. The cross traffic is never blocked. The gridlock is prevented before it can even start. It is such a simple visual solution to an incredibly frustrating urban problem. If you are enjoying this breakdown and finding these cultural differences as fascinating as I do, please hype up this video by hitting the like button. It genuinely shows your support and lets me know you want to see more content exactly like this. Number 7 is a rule that totally confused me when I first arrived, and that is the absolute ban on turning right on a red light. Or rather, turning left on a red light, since they drive on the left here. In America, the right turn on red is a sacred right. We instituted it across the country during the 1970s oil crisis to save fuel by reducing idling time at intersections. For drivers, it is incredibly convenient. You pull up, look for a gap in the traffic, and go. But for pedestrians, the American right on red is an absolute nightmare. Drivers looking left to check for oncoming cars are almost never looking right to check for pedestrians stepping off the curb. It causes thousands of pedestrian injuries every single year. The United Kingdom completely prohibits turning on a red light. Red means stop, full stop, no exceptions. At first, sitting at an empty intersection in the middle of the night waiting for a light to turn green felt incredibly frustrating. I would grip the steering wheel thinking, in America I would have been home 10 minutes ago. But the more I walked around British cities, the more I understood the genius of it. When a pedestrian gets a green walking man signal in the UK, they know with absolute certainty that no cars are going to suddenly swing through the crosswalk. It fundamentally changes how safe you feel navigating a city on foot. It prioritizes human lives over a driver saving 30 seconds on their commute. Number 8 goes hand in hand with pedestrian safety, and it is the cultural reverence for the zebra crossing. We have crosswalks in America, usually just 2 parallel white lines painted on the asphalt, but unless there is a red traffic light, American crosswalks often feel like a mere suggestion. Pedestrians have to play a real-life game of Frogger, standing on the curb, making intense eye contact with drivers, hoping someone will be kind enough to yield. Usually, massive pickup trucks just blow right past you. The British zebra crossing is a completely different beast. They are marked by thick, highly visible black and white stripes painted across the road, flanked by bright, flashing yellow globes on striped poles, which they call Belisha beacons. The law here is incredibly clear and universally respected. The second a pedestrian places a single foot on the black and white stripes, all vehicular traffic must immediately stop. The pedestrian has absolute right of way, and the British drivers actually stop. It is amazing to witness. You do not have to wave your arms or beg for permission to cross the street. You just stride purposefully toward the stripes, and the cars hit their brakes. It creates a completely different power dynamic on the streets. In the US, the car is king, and pedestrians are second-class citizens. In the UK, the zebra crossing gives the power back to the people walking. It makes walking to the local shops, walking your dog, or taking your kids to school so much less stressful. Number 9 is the incredibly strict culture and enforcement surrounding drinking and driving. Now, drinking and driving is obviously illegal in both countries, but the cultural attitude and the legal limits are vastly different. In many rural or suburban parts of the United States, having 2 or 3 beers at a sports bar and then driving your truck home is unfortunately still highly normalized. People try to calculate their own tolerance or claim they drive better after a few drinks. In the United Kingdom, the social stigma attached to drink driving is massive. It is considered an incredibly selfish, shameful act. If you go to a British pub on a Friday night, the designated driver is a highly respected member of the group. Furthermore, the pub industry has adapted beautifully. Every single pub, no matter how small or rural, serves a wide variety of 0% alcohol beers on tap, alongside sophisticated mocktails. You can participate in the pub culture without consuming a drop of alcohol. Legally, the limits are strict, and in Scotland, they are even stricter. The Scottish drink drive limit was lowered a few years ago to the point where even a single pint of strong beer or a large glass of wine will put you over the legal threshold. You essentially cannot drink anything if you plan to touch a steering wheel. The police frequently set up random breathalyzer checkpoints, especially around the Christmas holidays. If you are caught, the penalties are severe. You will immediately lose your driving license for at least a year, face massive fines, and potentially face prison time. There is no bargaining your way out of it. Because the punishment is so absolute and the social shame is so high, the British simply do not risk it. They take a taxi, they walk, they take the night bus, or they stick to 0% Guinness. The casualty statistics on British roads compared to American roads reflect this stark difference in culture. It is a level of maturity regarding alcohol and heavy machinery that America desperately needs to adopt. Living in the UK has completely rewired my brain when it comes to driving. I used to view driving as a solitary, defensive act. Now, I see it as a massive cooperative effort. From the polite hazard light flashes to the logical flow of the roundabouts, to the absolute protection of pedestrians at zebra crossings, the British road system just makes sense. It values safety, efficiency, and community over individual speed and convenience. It took me a few months to stop reaching for the gear stick with my right hand and hitting the door panel by mistake. But I would take driving on the left side of a British road over navigating an American intersection any day of the week.